Trey Lance injury news, 49ers taking on the Raiders today. We're going to get into all that and more on the Jack Hammer Show. Happy New Year, everybody. The Jack Hammer here for the 49ers pregame show, getting you ready for 49ers Raiders this afternoon, taking off in about an hour and 20 minutes from now. The 49ers will kick off in Las Vegas against the Las Vegas Raiders. Big matchup for the 49ers. Lots of implications in terms of playoff seeding and a lot of information coming around from the 49ers in general. There's been a lot of talk about Trey Lance, the possibility of Trey Lance returning to practice at some point this season. That had been a big discussion on around the 49ers content community, and here to report that that's not going to be happening. You probably saw the news last night. NFL insider Ian Rappaport dropping the news that Trey Lance underwent a second surgery on his ankle to remove some hardware that was inserted during the first surgery. He had experienced some irritation based on where that was located, possibly near a tendon. That was causing some issues there. And so he's now going to be on crutches for the next 2 weeks. The expectation is that he will be fine for OTAs. My thought on this is having a surgery is never a good thing, even if it is a surgery to remove something that was expected to be removed. It's never a positive. You never look at a surgery and go, oh, this is good. But I will say this. There is no change. This isn't something all of a sudden that's changed the timeline for Trey Lance. The timeline since the moment he went down last season, earlier this year, against the Seahawks, has been that he would return in time for OTAs next year. This surgery does not change that. There's really all this is a secondary procedure. As far as the timeline, though, for Trey Lance, no changes. He'll be ready to go come OTA. So when the field team hits the field in late April, early May for the beginning of their OTA workouts, Trey Lance will be there. He will be healthy, should be healthy, and that's really the only news that comes out of this, or the thing. What comes out of it is just the fact that he's going to be fine and he'll be there as expected. Again, the only thing that was off was the possibility that he might return at some point this season, because there had been a number of folks, doctors included, 49ers around the 49ers community, who had said that he should be able to return this season if everything goes according to plan. It didn't. Secondary surgery. He'll be ready to go in OTAs. Trey Lance. Now, I just want to shout out a few folks over in the comment section before we get into today's pregame show. We have Lucas Pesci, comes all the way from Austria. He says, "Hi, Jack. Happy New Year." He is a member of the Toolbox as well. Good to have you on board, Lucas. Great to see you. We have Raphael 5629ers. It says, "Good morning, Jack. Members of the Toolbox and everyone. Like and subscribe." Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Raphael. You do a great job with that. You always do a good job of reminding me. And he also wants to make sure that he shouts out Happy New Year's to everyone. And we also have Lucas Walsh in the house. He says, "Happy New Year, Niners fans. Happy New Year to you too, Luke." Now let's get into this game a little bit. It's an interesting matchup, right? The 49ers coming into this thing, they're going to look to extend their current 8-game win streak against the Raiders this afternoon. But on top of looking to extend their win streak, they're looking to move into at least the second seed in the NFC playoffs. And that would require them to pick up the win today and a loss by Minnesota to Green Bay. That Minnesota-Green Bay game will be running concurrently with the 49ers game. So you'll have to keep track of that while you're watching the 49ers game today. But that would be number one. Another piece of that really quick is that the 49ers possibility of getting the number one seed is still alive and well. They need the Philadelphia Eagles to lose out. While they win out, they also need that one loss by Minnesota. For the 49ers right now, the good news is that the Philadelphia Eagles are trailing, to the New Orleans Saints in Philadelphia as we speak. So it's all starting. It could we'll see how this game plays out, this morning game with Philadelphia. But there is a strong possibility that we will go into week 18 of the NFL season with the 49ers still having being alive in that race for the number one seed in the NFC playoffs. And if they can get that number one seed, that opens up the track for sure to a Super Bowl berth. Now you look at the Raiders. As you get into this game, and the Raiders they've already looked like they've begun preparations for 2023. They've gone and they went ahead and they benched starting quarterback Derek Carr. Not only did they bench Derek Carr, they sent him home. They said, "Get out of here. So long, sucker." And so he's gone. Derek Carr won't be a Raider next year. That's what that all points to. In addition to that, a couple of their top defenders were placed on injured reserve earlier this week on Monday. So they will not have a couple of their top defenders as well. So this is a game that when you look at it on paper, the 49ers are in a good spot and should be able to come out with a big victory today. Now, you look at it, let's go through the keys though. And the one thing that gives me pause when I say that they should come out with a big victory is you look at what happened in Tennessee on Thursday night. You had a Dallas team playing against a Tennessee team that was decimated by injuries, down to their third quarterback, and yet they were able to keep that game close. It was close into the third quarter, into the fourth quarter, and the Cowboys end up pulling away. But that could be an issue today for the 49ers if they overlook the Raiders. I think that's the only way that Vegas has a shot in this game is if the 49ers overlook them. But as far as the 5 things that I'm looking for, here you go. And these are the 5 keys to the game, I think. Brock Purdy, number 1. Can Brock Purdy keep rolling? If you look at what he did last week, he became the first quarterback since Kurt Warner to win his first 3 NFL starts and throw 2 or more touchdown passes in each of those games. That's pretty good news. If he throws at least 2 touchdowns this week, he'll become the first 49ers quarterback since Jeff Garcia to pull off that feat 5 weeks in a row. And Garcia did that back in 2001. So, again, he will be on that path right now. If you look at it, with Purdy, he's thrown 2 interceptions the last 4 weeks because they don't count the game against Miami. He didn't make that start, so that's included in the start numbers there. But he's been playing at a very high level. And after facing 3 defenses that were ranked 17th or higher in net yards per pass allowed, Purdy gets to take on a Raiders defense, which comes in 26th in this category. The 49ers currently also have the 4th highest net yards per pass attempt. So this is something that definitely plays into the 49ers' favor. And we'll get into some of the, one of the reasons that I think this could help him is that Chandler Jones is one of the top players for the Raiders that was put on injury reserve this week. He has 4.5 sacks, which were second only to Max Crosby on the Las Vegas Raiders roster. There is no other Raiders defender who has recorded at least 2 sacks this season. So it's pretty much Max Crosby and a bunch of guys who don't get to the quarterback that will be chasing after Brock Purdy today, which should help the 49ers out in that regard. And then if we look at it a little bit further, Ellen Elizer in the house as well, and we've got KW2421 who says that's exactly what they told him, Jack, LOL, and he's talking about what they told to old Derek Carr, who's probably sitting at home in Bakersfield right now, getting ready to watching some NFL football from the comfort of his couch. Number 2, can the 49ers run game stay hot? So I think Brock Purdy is a big piece of this because of the matchup that they have there, but also look at the 49ers running game. If you look at what they've been doing over there, they've been very strong these last 3 weeks. They've averaged 5.5 yards per rush attempt. Christian McCaffrey leading the way with 273 yards on 55 carries over that time. He's been a big piece of that. Had a couple of big games, in particular, a couple of weeks ago with it was over 100 yards on only 19 carries. So that really helps that out. And then behind McCaffrey, you have the 49ers getting solid outings from their rookies, Jordan Mason and Ty Davis-Price. In particular, Jordan Mason helping out that rushing average total. He's gained 100 yards on only 15 carries against the Tampa Bay and Seattle before being limited to only special teams duty last week due to some issues with his hamstring and then a tweak in his knee a little bit on a early kickoff coverage. And then in Mason's absence last week, you had Ty Davis-Price step up He received his first carry since week 7. He finished with 9 attempts for 30 yards. He had a couple of good runs, but unfortunately for Ty Davis Price, his average yards per attempt has been right around this number all season long. It's just not. It's not. He's not. He's not generating consistent yards on a regular basis. So that's why you get the 9 for 30. He had some nice carries, but he also has some others where he's just getting stuffed at the line of scrimmage. I think with Ty Davis Price, he's a bigger back, and they really try to use him in more of their power schemes. And the 49ers offensive line just doesn't push teams around very well in those situations. So you saw Davis Price against last week against Washington have a couple of nice runs in the second half on zone schemes. We'll see how that all plays out today, whether Jordan Mason becomes the number 2 back or if we see Ty Davis Price back there again. And then also Ray McLeod. He made his presence felt in a big way last week with a 71-yard sweep around the right side for a touchdown. That was the longest 49ers run of the season. He's playing in place of Deebo Samuel, kind of taking that Deebo Samuel role to an extent. And you look at the Raiders coming in, and they've only allowed 4.3 yards per rush attempt this season, which is 13th best in the league. Now, they already talked about the fact that they're not going to have Chandler Jones. They're also not going to have linebacker Denzel Perryman. So this could help the 49ers offense out again. Perryman is actually the Raiders' leader in tackles. He was placed on injury reserve with a shoulder injury on Monday as well. So the 49ers offense is in a really good spot, I think, in this game. You look at this matchup even before, and I would say that it always favored the 49ers offense. The Raiders are a team that scored a bunch of points early on this season. They'd get out the big leads and then they'd crumble. A lot of that had to do with the play of their defense overall. So I think this is a defense that really plays into their favor. In terms of what to look for on the defensive side, there's actually more things that I have this week on the defensive side. Number one, Nick Bosa. Can he set the record today for the NFL's single-season sack record? Will we see a record-setting performance from Nick Bosa? He comes into this game with 17.5 sacks, just 2 short of the 49ers single-season record, which is currently held by Aldon Smith. The Vegas offensive line, though, has been one of the better offensive lines in the league at protecting the quarterback, allowing an average of only 2 sacks per game this season. They're right there around the 49ers in terms of that ability to protect their quarterback, and the 49ers are one of the better teams in the league at that. So the one thing, though, when I look at this game, the change from Carr to Stidham could help the 49ers out in their pass rush with getting to the quarterback, because, sometimes you get a quarterback in there that hasn't played as much as a veteran and the ball doesn't come out quite as quickly as it should. Maybe he holds on to the ball a couple of times and allows Bosa and company to get home. We'll see how that works. If he can get 3 sacks a day, and I think that you look at Nick Bosa changing his vision to having a possibility of either tying or breaking Michael Strahan's single season record of 22.5. Again, he's at 17.5 now. He'd have to get 5 to tie him, 6 to break the NFL record. I think it would take a big performance today to have to put it in position next week against an Arizona Cardinal team, which is not very good. And Bosa might be able to actually break that record next week. I think it'd be hard pressed to say that he's going to get 6 sacks a day, but if he can get 2 or 3 today, if he can get 3 today, I think you're starting to look at maybe him being able to get 3 that final week and actually breaking the record. So really looking forward to watching Nick Bosa get after the quarterback, especially with all the attention that Max Crosby gets. I think that there's a little bit of extra motivation for Nick Bosa to get that sack. And we have an update, score update. Luke Walsh coming in. It is now Saints 10, Eagles 0. Again, pointed this out a few weeks ago that the 49ers had that opportunity to get the number 1 seed. Jalen Hurts going down with that shoulder injury, and they're going with the ever interesting quarterback from Washington State, who I can't remember his name right now. That's how interesting he is. And they're now losing by a score of 10-0. If this score holds, that is huge news for the 49ers, who could go into the final week of the season having the opportunity to get home field advantage through the playoffs. Now, Jarrett Stidham. Are the 49ers defense, is that defense going to be ready for Jarrett Stidham? That's my fourth question today. And you make a quarterback change, and that can be tough for your opponent because Jarrett Stidham is pretty much an unknown to most of the NFL. Uh, not knowing the tendencies, not knowing what he can do necessarily, it's very minimal. The film on him, most of the film that the 49ers will have to look at is going to be his preseason film from his time out in New England. There's only about 60 throws worth of film on Jarrett Stidham. So he's unknown to most of the NFL, but the one thing is he's not unknown to Raiders head coach Josh McDaniels. Stidham and McDaniels were together for the last 3 seasons in New England, and then McDaniels brought Stidham out with him when he became the Raiders head coach this offseason. So there's an understanding, there's a knowledge of the two between the coach and the player there. So I think that McDaniels knows a little bit about his quarterback there, and so it's going to make it interesting. His only throws this season came back in Week 8 against New Orleans. That was a blowout 24-0 loss. They put him in the fourth quarter, and Stidham was able to go 8 of 13 for 72 yards. That's really some of the better. That actually got him over a 50% completion rate for his career in the NFL because it was not good during his time in New England. So that lack of tape, like I said, could with 49ers. It's not uncommon for a backup quarterback to come in and play well for a week or two. We'll see. I think the 49ers defense is one of the better defenses out there, and they've been able to rattle some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL who aren't named Patrick Mahomes this season. And so you look at that, and the other piece too here is that this change at quarterback. How much is it going to hurt the Raiders? Over the last 5 weeks, the Raiders have turned the ball over 10 times. 10 turnovers for the Raiders in the last 5 weeks. 9 of those came from the guy who's now sitting on his couch in Bakersfield by way of interceptions from Derek Carr's right arm. So getting Stidham in there, if he's functional and he's able to run this offense at all, that switch could help the Raiders out, and just in terms of not turning the ball over. With the 49ers in particular, winning the turnover battle is a big key to their success. They've forced 15 turnovers over the last 8 weeks during this win streak. There's been 15 turnovers that they've been able to force. They've only turned the ball over 4 times. The 49ers aren't very good at winning when they turn the ball over more than their opponent. So if they go into this game today and they make some mistakes and Jarrett Stidham's able to hold on to the ball and just be functional and make some throws here and there, it could play into the favor. And then the other piece of this with that is if Stidham is functional and he's not turning the ball over, then the question really becomes what I have for number 5, which is, can the 49ers defense stop Josh Jacobs? Josh Jacobs is the key to the Raiders offense. You look at what the 49ers defense has done this season. They haven't allowed an opposing running back to rush for more than 59 yards in any game. Brian Robinson is the one that came very close to that just last week when he picked up 58 yards on just 22 carries. That's a pretty good number for the 49ers, who have a guy have to carry the ball 22 times just to pick up just 58 yards. That's a number that benefits the 49ers. But next up is Josh Jacobs, and Jacobs has been the best offensive player for the Raiders this season. You look at Jacobs' numbers, he has run for over 59 yards in 12 of the 15 games, and he's rushed for almost 400 yards in just the last 3 weeks. Last week, he was held to, I believe it was around 44 yards, but he had 200 yards up in Seattle. He followed that up with over 100 yards the week after that. So Jacobs is actually running at a fairly high rate. So again, if the quarterback is functional, Jacobs starts going, then you start to look at, okay, you're able to keep the ball away from the 49ers offense. You're able to control the time of possession and put points on the board. And I think, that's a big key. I talked about this last week with the game against Washington was, can you win on first down? Can you win on second down? If you can win on those early downs, you should be able to. The 49ers defense has the pass rush and the overall defense to be able to win on third and long, those 3rd and 6 and longer. In the first half, it didn't work out all that great for the 49ers. They did a really good job of stopping Washington on first and second down. But Taylor Heineke was able to make some big plays on third down to keep the chains moving. And we saw Washington, they were held to only 7 points because of a really nice goal line stand by the 49ers defense. But that's the key for the 49ers defense. Get stops on first down, get it on first and second down, force your defense into third, force the opposing offense into 3rd and 6 or longer. And that's what the 49ers have to do here. They need to be able to shut down Josh Jacobs, make it so that Jarrett Stidham has to beat them, has to get more than 6 yards on 3rd down. And I think that's where you put him in a bad situation as a young quarterback in particular. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see how that matchup works out for the 49ers, because I think it should be a positive, but it's going to be, again, it's going to be an interesting matchup, I think, overall. 49ers should win this game. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm giving you all of the analysis of the game, but when it comes down to who do I think is going to win, how do I think this game is going to go, my prediction for today is that the 49ers are going to win this game by a score of 23-13. That might not sound like a big margin to you, but I think this 10-point margin it's based on, I think the 49ers are in control throughout, and Washington, the Raiders are able to get a touchdown maybe in the second half, what have you, as the game wears on. But I think this is a game that the 49ers get up early and then are able to run the clock down and break it down that way. So I say 49ers 23, Raiders 13. So it should be an interesting matchup. I hope you guys are all enjoying your New Year's, and I'll be back after the game with a post-game show, and hope to see everybody there. It'll be a lot of fun to get a lot of interaction from you folks to let with questions and comments, and then let's really get into the game afterwards. I know last week I wasn't able to come on with it being Christmas Eve and all, but when the game's over with today, when I'm done with my writing, I'll be jumping on here. We can talk about the game. We'd love to hear what you have to say about it. I'll bring up your comments in the comment section. We'll go through it. So again, the news for the 49ers today: Trey Lance, second surgery, still on track to return in time for OTA. So really no change there. The only thing is that the whole possibility of him returning this year, c'est la vie, that was never really going to be the case anyway. And then in terms of things to watch today, we should see a big performance from Brock Purdy. Can the running game stay hot, especially with Denzel Perryman not there? Will Nick Bosa be able to break the 49ers record of 19.5 sacks? He would need 2.5 at least to do that. 2 ties, Aldon Smith. The 49ers against Jarrett Stidham should favor the 49ers. But will they be prepared? Do they have an idea of what he can do? The first half might be a little interesting. We'll see how the second half goes, see how that whole matchup plays out. And then last but not least, I think the biggest one for the 49ers defense today is stopping Josh Jacobs. And then last but not least, the 49ers winning today by a score of 23-13 over the Raiders in Las Vegas. We'll see how all that plays out. But thank you all very much for taking the time to join. If you're watching this and you're not already a part of the channel in terms of a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button on your way out. When you do hit that little bell notification, like I said, I will be back after the game with my post-game wrap, giving you my thoughts, taking your questions, and all those things. Also, on your way out, if you could hit that like button for me. The like button is the biggest thing here on YouTube. It really helps us get our signal out. So if you could hit that hit the subscribe, hit that little bell notification, we'd really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your New Year's Day. Enjoy the football, and I will be back after the game. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.